If ever there was a vehicle that was an automotive representation of getting the makeover treatment from the Fab 5, it has to be the Y62 Patrol.
They are super reliable, yes, but they're not perfect.
Oh, I now understand why so many Y62 owners drive like complete. Okay, my God, doesn't the Y62 Patrol just divide opinion? Talk to anyone in the four-wheel drive community and you'll have this aggressive split between people claiming this is the greatest four-wheel drive that has ever graced planet Earth versus those that just want to burn the thing to the ground. Actually, some of these have done that all by themselves, but we'll get to that soon. So let's answer all of the massive questions here. What actually goes wrong with these? How are they aging? What do they like to drive and live with? And should you ever consider buying one? But first of all, what are you potentially buying in the first place? Even though the Y62 has been around since 2013, Nissan has updated the Patrol a number of times, offering multiple series locally. As well as a whole bunch of small changes, a few key updates include mechanical revisions from the Series 3 onwards that improved fuel consumption, especially in metro environments. The Series 4 featured design changes to the grille and wheels. However, the most significant changes came with the Series 5 in 2019. That included this new face and new aesthetics everywhere, improvements to the tech and safety features, and also improvements to the NVH levels and just the overall driving experience. However, no matter what the series, what hasn't changed across all of the Y62 series is what's under here. All Y62 models come with a 5.6 litre V8 engine paired with a 7-speed automatic transmission, a transfer case, a low-range setup, and a host of off-roading features. As far as the trim specs go, primarily there have been just two, the TI and the TIL. However, representing the extremes in terms of the gear range and equipment, initially a base spec STL was offered, and more recently, the Warrior arrived in showrooms featuring a host of equipment and goodies. Obviously, you'll then also have the choice of buying an example fitted with whatever smorgasbord of accessories that your heart desires. Anyway, these are just the Australian delivered models. In North America, the Y62 has been available as the Nissan Armada, and internationally in luxury form as the Infiniti QX56 and QX80. Not to mention, the crazy guys at Nismo have released performance variants primarily for the Middle East. And it's this North American and Middle East connection that raises a few unfortunate realities for our Patrol. See, it's important to understand that even though the Patrol is hugely popular here in Australia, our entire market is insignificant when compared to these other larger markets. Nissan's priorities with the Patrol clearly focus on the North American and Middle Eastern markets. This explains the lack of a diesel engine option and the requirement for the engine to ideally use premium unleaded fuel. However, many claim that buying a Y62 over its arch nemesis, the diesel-powered 200 series Toyota LandCruiser, more than makes up the difference when it comes to fuel costs. But to give you an idea of this, used Y62s here in Australia are currently asking anywhere from about $40,000 to $160,000. Let's take this one as an example. 2020 model, excellent condition, low kilometers, few accessories. These are swapping hands from $75,000 to about 80 grand. However, an equivalent 200 series LandCruiser, it's going to be asking anywhere from $120,000 to $130,000, possibly even more. That means if you buy a Y62 over a 200 series, you could save, worst case scenario, $40,000. That is a boatload of fuel. That means based on premium unleaded costing $2.12 a litre, which it does just around the corner here, and this thing using just over its claimed fuel consumption figure, $40,000 will buy you over 125,000 kilometres of range. And that means you could theoretically do the big lap of Australia over 8 times and still have some money left over. Now, on the topic of saving money, chances are if you're in the market for one of these, you're going to be looking at car finance. Please don't get ripped off with the wrong finance package. That's why you should hit the driver link down there. Now look, I'm not going to bore you with all of the details right now, but just know on this very vehicle, I went and got quotes on finance. The price difference for the overall payout figure at the end of the loan between the cheapest and the most expensive was $27,000. That means clearly there is some serious money to be saved, and the entire process is super easy and fast, and it's totally free. Now, with you being a four-wheel drive fan, I'm going to assume that you're also a huge fan of the fabulous Netflix makeover show Queer Eye, and if ever there was a vehicle that was an automotive representation of getting the makeover treatment from the Fab 5, it has to be the Y62 Patrol. Pre-makeover? I'm sorry, but just not a good-looking vehicle. The front looks a bit out of proportion, the rear end with those clear tail lights. I just think it all looks a bit cheap and nasty. Post-makeover though? I mean, wow. What a difference. I think this looks tens of thousands of dollars more expensive. Plus, even with just a few subtle accessories like this, bloody hell, they look good. However, there is something that really annoys me about the design, and it is this. Look, I know these vents or intakes, they are functional, but for me, it just looks like some stuck on cheap bit of chrome plastic like you'd see on a badly modified Camry or Mitsubishi Lancer. I mean, come on, Nissan, you can do better than that. You can paint it black, that helps, but the overall design, ugh. Okay, now on to things that annoy owners with the exterior. Let's start with the paint. Now look, this can vary wildly from car to car, but Series 4 and 5 Patrols can have issues with paint flaking. Now apparently Nissan changed to an eco-friendly paint and it doesn't bond to the primer all that well, that's why it flakes off. The good news here is Nissan have actually done full bare metal resprays of Patrols under warranty to fix the problem. I should mention there is an entire Facebook group dedicated to this problem. If you've got issues like this, go check out that Facebook group. Now, other good news, apparently this paint issue has been resolved as of 2021 Series 5 model Patrols, hence the couple of $1,000s price increase at the retail level. Other than that, there are a few sporadic reports of some condensation building up in the lights. And also a few electronic gremlins, again with the lights, and sometimes the powered tailgates. This isn't powered, but if it was, you might have an issue. Also, if the trailer plug gets wet, apparently the entire car can have a few electronic issues. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, plenty of owners see the Y62 Patrol as almost a blank canvas to create a parts accessories catalog artwork out of. The issue is you've got to make sure that these accessories are high quality, are fitted correctly, and actually work. And even though plenty of owners out there will fit every conceivable accessory known to mankind and then never take the thing off-road, that is just stupid and ridiculous. You do need to ascertain how the vehicle's been treated. So climb underneath, ideally with a torch, and have a look under there for any signs of damage or corrosion. Actually, you know what? After this video, go and watch our ultimate 4x4 buyer's guide because it will explain everything. Also, make sure you get a vehicle history check because that'll tell you if the car's been written off or if it's been stolen or if there's any money owing on it. If you need one of those, go to ReDriven.com or hit the link down below. Now look, no matter how the Patrol has been driven, it is a big and heavy vehicle, so you might need to budget for a little bit extra for things like the tyres and brake pads and brake rotors because they do like to eat their consumables. Now just back to the off-roading accessories for a second, because this is a full IRS setup, it might not be as, let's say, enthusiastically receptive to lift kits like something with a live rear axle. Look, obviously you can lift these, but if it's not done properly, it can create all sorts of alignment issues. Best case scenario, you're going to chew through tyres at a rate of knots. Worst case scenario, you might get a terrible case of the death wobbles. Not to mention, if it's been lifted incorrectly, this puts extra load on your CV joints and suspension components, and if you're planning on driving like a complete dickhead, that could be disastrous. We cannot say this strongly enough. If you're going to lift it, please do it properly. Okay, now to complaints and issues inside, let's start with the infotainment system. For the prices these things are asking, this thing is a joke. Owners have reported all sorts of issues, Bluetooth connection issues, slow operations, the whole thing just being glitchy. The list, it just goes on and on. Now, finally, Nissan have upgraded this so it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is from the 2024 models onwards. But according to the owners, pre-2024, just ditch this and upgrade it with a quality aftermarket system. And then apparently there can be just a host of quality issues, the cheap plastics rattling and creaking around a little bit, weird sporadic things like the electric motors in the seat adjusters not being adjusted correctly from the factory so the seats actually move and wobble around a little bit, even electronic gremlins like the doors just refusing to lock or sometimes unlock. I should mention, obviously, all of these common problems, they don't impact every single Patrol out there. There are thousands and thousands of owners that have never and probably will never have an issue. Actually, just on the owners, Y62 owners groups and forums, thank you so much for helping us put this video together. We couldn't have done it without you. Your research and knowledge is incredible, especially Matt Wyatt. Dude, you're a legend. Thank you so much. Also, a huge thank you to Sean from SP Motors for lending us this Patrol. Mate, you're a legend. If you need a car and you're in Sydney, go and see Sean at SP Motors. Now, this next issue seems to affect primarily pre-facelift cars or the pre-2019 cars. The leather, apparently it can lift and wear prematurely, and the interiors in general, they're maybe not quite as resilient as you're expecting for a full drive in this class. As far as the wear and tear in this particular example goes, 2020 model, pretty low Ks, but interior wear and tear, superb. There's all the leather still has texture and still feels very, very soft. Even these sort of plastic finishes, there's not too many scratches there, and these are high traffic areas. Good texture on the steering wheel. Yeah, great wear and tear. Obviously, every example is going to vary from one to the other depending on how it's been used, but this one, really good. Although one thing, and it's not this particular example, it's all Patrols, just some of the switch gear, I feel like it just feels a little cheap and nasty for what these are asking. Another complaint that these cop is just how the interior feel is aging. This design, it hasn't changed for well over 10 years. Even in 2024 models, it still pretty much looks the same. And I get it to a degree. I have to admit, it looks older in pictures than it does in real life. It's not too bad, but yeah, it is feeling its age. Don't get me wrong, it is a really lovely place to be, but in the same sort of way that it's really nice to hang out in your grandparents' living room. Now, the materials used will improve the higher up the food chain you go. This one is a TI 2020 model, feels quite nice. One thing I do have to bring up, but the wood grain trim in combination with the kind of camel or caramel colored leather, I am getting very much 70s adult film kind of vibes. Now the Warrior, it updates all of this aesthetic with gloss black plastic finishes and replacing the wood grain, and you can buy that stuff aftermarket as well. Now I've got to warn you, that'll look fantastic for about 30 seconds. After that, it's going to be covered in fingerprints and eventually scratches everywhere. Aside from that, the first thing that really hits you when you get in is just so much space. There is acres of space in here. It is not a car that wraps around you at all. But the seats are just phenomenal. For long distance touring, up there with some of the most comfortable seats I've sat in. Not Lexus levels, but pretty close. As far as actually living with it goes, practicality wise, pretty good. Massive glove box there. Yep, closes. You've got two cup holders here, a little pull-out tray which would fit a small pretentious coffee like the ones I drink, like an espresso or a macchiato. You've got a spot here for the keys. Also, this holds your phone pretty nicely there as well. Enormous cubby bin here, which is, I don't think it's actually cool, but it's feeling quite cool in there. Now the door bins, they're a good size, but they're a little bit on the shallow side. So if you've got a tall water bottle and it's full, if you go around corners with vigor, it might fall over. You've also got a spot for your sunglasses up there. There's nothing under the seats. There's nothing major down here. Oh, this is a cool feature as well. The sunshades, these extend, which is cool. And that's it for practicality up front. Now, as far as what features and equipment you get, let's start with the negatives first. As I mentioned, forget Apple CarPlay and Android Auto if you're looking at anything older than 2024. Standard infotainment system, it's pretty shit. And the standard stereo in the lower trim models, it leaves a bit to be desired as well. However, the positives move up to a TI-L, and the Bose sound system is a huge improvement. All but the early STLs have leather trim and seat heating, and even the TI will provide pretty much everything you'd expect from something like this. That means we're talking Bluetooth, powered everything, dual or multi-zone climate control, a 360-degree camera, parking sensors. Look, it's just loaded with equipment. And speaking of being loaded with equipment, if you really want all of the bells and whistles, and I'm talking all of the bells and whistles, go and check out a Warrior, because that is a very special piece of kit. Now look, so you don't have to remember all of these features, let alone all of the common problems, we've gone and listed everything you're going to need to know over at ReDriven.com on the completely free Y62 Patrol cheat sheet. It's basically the ultimate Y62 buyer's guide. Now, while we're on the subject of citizens in patrol, I'm exactly 5 centimeters taller than Star of Police Academy 4 Steve Gutenberg. This is in my driving position. Wow. Obviously, so much leg and foot room. The seats are really comfortable. Windows are massive, so it feels airy and spacious in here, helped by the caramel colored leather. This is just a delightful place to be. As far as wear and tear in this particular example, I don't think anyone's ever sat back here, and that's a shame as it's bloody comfortable. Leather's basically new. There's no marks anywhere. It's honestly, it feels like a new car. Now, as far as features and practicality in the back seat, you've got map pockets here, you've got door bins, which are fine. You've got a pull down armrest here with 2 cup holders. You've got your own air vents. You've got 2 USB ports here and your own climate controls in the back. And I've just realized the center console is bisexual because it goes both ways, both the way before and this way. How cool is that? Now, as far as getting in the third row, good news, because it's a case of the old fold and tumble. How easy is that? And then once you're in, okay, not too bad. Hang on, I'm just going to adjust this so it's a little comfier. There we go. Obviously, this is not designed for adults for a long period of time, but this is not too bad. It's a little bit on the firm side, but hang on, make that easier. Adjust this. Yeah, comfy enough. As far as wear and tear in the third row, there's a high chance that this is the first time these seats have ever been used ever. There's no wear and tear. Cup holders here, air vents. Yeah, not a bad space to be. Now, as far as practicality and boot space goes, with all 3 rows in place, like most 7-seat SUVs, not a whole lot of room back here. Think really, really small hatchback levels. But then with the third row stowed away, huge amounts of boot space back here. This is massive. Also, I should mention, depending on the configuration of Y62, it can be a 7 or 8 seater. And then with the second and third row down, look, obviously massive cavity in here, but it's not quite as flat, I was hoping. It's a little bit on the lumpy side. Now, while we're talking practicality, we do need to talk about towing, and the Y62 simply has one of the best GVM and GCM combinations in its category. However, make sure you do your homework if you're planning on towing, especially if the Patrol you're looking at is loaded with accessories, because you might be in for a nasty surprise. For example, if you're overloaded, even unintentionally, and you have an accident, there's every chance you're going to void your insurance. We have known of situations where this has happened. Now look, we simply don't have time to delve into all the specific details in this video, but what we've done, we've added links to Dirty Muddy Weekends and Auto Expert videos on towing. If you're planning on towing in one of these videos are an absolute must watch. Now, while we're being responsible, we do need to talk about safety features, but with police cracking down on illegal modifications with these at the moment, it does seem only right that we do this next safety feature voiceover in a police patrol sort of style. Get it? Patrol? Patrol? You get it.
10-4 dispatch to all units. Be advised, we have a Y62 Patrol on scene, equipped with 6 airbags, ABS, electronic brake force distribution, brake assist, electronic stability control, and traction control.
Yeah, 1015. Dispatch, please note that the TIL model is also further equipped with intelligent cruise control, distance control assist, blind spot warning and intervention, forward collision warnings, and also lane departure warnings.
1017, copy that.
Yeah, Patrol out.
Are you tired of streaky, squeaky wipers? Confused by wipers that are hard to buy and even harder to fit? Sick of paying extortionate prices for wipers? Well, introducing WiperTech. Purchase wipers from the leisure of your home and have them delivered straight to your door. Not only are they a piece of cake to fit, they fit perfectly, and you can now enjoy streak and squeak-free wipering all day. Plus, use our code and get 15% off your purchase.
Okay, now common complaints when it comes to the driving experience, and the first thing we need to talk about, unfortunately, is fuel consumption. Now, talk about dividing opinion here, because talk to some owners and they'll claim they're seeing less than 13 litres per 100 Ks. Other owners call complete bullshit on that because they're looking down the barrel of 20 plus. Look, what fuel consumption figure you see, it's going to vary on about 1,000 different variables, but just know, if you don't bolt every conceivable accessory to it, never tow anything, and possess Buddhist monk levels of self-discipline, yeah, these can be pretty economical for a 2.5 ton naturally aspirated petrol V8. And then you might come across a whole bunch of complaints regarding blown CV joints and things falling apart and just rubbish off-roading chops. Well, okay, look, if you drive like a complete dickhead with no mechanical sympathy and go putting the Patrol in ridiculous scenarios, yeah, you're probably going to break something, but that's not the car's fault, that's you being an idiot. I mean, that's like eating ice cream with a steak knife and then complaining that your mouth is bleeding. Look, the Y62, it was never intended to dominate stuff like rock crawling, but it'll tackle the vast majority of serious off-roading that most normal people will throw at it, and there's plenty of YouTube videos that prove that. But besides all that, to drive, what an epic thing. The coils all around and this hydraulic suspension, it gives it just so much confidence on road. It feels really, really refined. It's way more controlled in its body movements than a 200 series. Okay, it's not at Land Rover Discovery levels of refined in here, but there's a high chance that this car won't leave you stranded in the middle of nowhere like that might. Now, there seems to be no effort from Nissan's part on attempting to try to hide the vehicle's size because it does feel huge. You're constantly aware that this thing takes up a load of real estate. That does make it challenging to do things like parking and negotiating traffic in Sydney. But you know what? With this engine and the sound of it, I now understand why so many Y62 owners drive like complete assholes. I mean, obviously the vast majority of Y62 owners out there drive completely responsibly, but I now understand this feeling of just masculinity driving this. I suddenly have an immense disregard for everyone else outside the car. Look, overall, to drive this thing, it is just awesome, just in a very naughty way. But look, it's all well and good that these are utterly wonderful to drive, but mechanically, what goes wrong with them? I can't tell you, I'm afraid, because I'm not a qualified mechanic. You know who is? It's Jim.
Now, you may or may not know that Nissan and Renault have been in bed together for a very long time now. And thankfully, Nissan managed to keep the folks at Renault and their little sausage fingers right out of the development of the Patrol. They are super reliable, yes, but they're not perfect. In the pre-March 2013 models, they had a whole bunch of timing chain issues. Now, you'll know if you have this issue because you can hear it rattle on startup, and when it gets bad enough, the chain actually rubs internally and makes a terrible noise. Now, that's about a $6,500 job to get that repaired. Thankfully, it's almost unheard of after that date. So if you're going to get one, look for a later model after March 2013. One of the other issues that affects all of them regardless of date is the fan hub. Now, it's a viscous fan hub, but it does have some electronic elements within it. That fails basically and causes the fan hub to lock up. You'll know if that's a problem because it screams its head off and it sucks an immense amount of power and makes a terrible noise. It is a known issue to Nissan, but as far as I know, they don't cover it under warranty. Now, the HBMC, that's the hydraulic body motion control system. That's basically a interconnected hydraulic pressurized system that works the stabilizers and the shock absorbers. It's all interconnected. It is a clever design and usually works pretty well, but when you do have problems with it, it can be a massive pain in the ass and quite expensive to fix. A lot of owners complain about a weird body and wheel wobble scenario when they're accelerating, and quite often the HBMC system does get blamed unfairly. Whilst it can be part of the problem, more often it's a wheel alignment issue or a ride height issue or a spring rate issue, and in some cases it's all of it together, and it can be a massive pain in the ass to sort out. Now, a lot of owners with these do a GVM upgrade. You know, if you're towing and carrying a lot of weight, it makes sense. But some owners have experienced more frequent ball joint and lower control arm issues as well. So again, the more load you put on something, the more problems you're going to have with it. And also, I should just mention, when you're not towing or carrying a whole bunch of weight, it makes the ride quality just terrible. Now, another thing that can wreak havoc with CV shafts and drive shafts is a Harrop supercharger kit. Now, a lot of power does break driveline components, but to be honest with you, I think it's totally worth it. I really, really want one of these. And speaking of modifications, look, mods can make or break one of these, literally break them. The more something is modified and the more you lean on it, the more likely you are to have complicated problems. And for some owners, that's part of the ownership experience. But for most owners, stock standard is more than enough. And to be honest, that would be the one I would get. Stock standard, unmodified, just start there.
So after all of that, should you buy one of these? Look, let me just start by saying I don't know enough about human psychology of why we create these loyalties to sporting teams and brands, or in this case, four-wheel drives, or why others feel the need to throw hate or criticism at things that they choose not to use. But just please know, the Y62 Patrol, it is nowhere near as bad as the detractors will lead you to believe. But at the same time, they're maybe not quite as brilliant as the hardcore fans might lead you to believe. But here's a question for you. What else for this sort of money can do what this can do? But look, the right Patrol with a full and thorough service history, my God, it can be a bloody awesome thing. The wrong Patrol can be a complete and utter nightmare. Interestingly, these are things that don't seem to impact this alternative quite as much. But if you weren't to buy that or this, what would you buy? Let us know in the comments below. See you next time. Plenty of owners see a Y60. Now, as I'm... Jesus Christ. The wrong Patrol can be a complete nightmare. And I've gone totally blank on the rest.